What's up, guys? This is Taking the Field with Stevie Mac, episode 21 now of the podcast. I'm your host, Stephen MacDonald, and today's episode is a very special one for the podcast. We're going to talk some PLL action. We got Phil Rothermick and Jordan Johnson here. And guys, let's just jump right into it and get into this off season for the Premier Lacrosse League. We started out with the announcement of that expansion team, the Water Dogs. We then went into, I believe it was February, with the expansion draft where Andy Copeland picked his first 18 players for that Water Dogs club. Then came the entry draft in March where guys like Rob Pennell came into the league finally. Then we come into May with the announcement of the championship series that'll take place later on in July, and the collegiate draft followed a week after that where we saw guys like Grant Ament go number 1, Brian Cospiel went number 3 to the Atlas, and then finally just within the last week or so was the wrapping up of the trade deadline, and later today will be the end of the waiver period. So really my question to start off for you guys is, what's been your favorite part, or maybe there's been several parts of the off season so far?
Jordan, you want to go first, or?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to put really a favorite, but I got to admit that Rob Pennell announcement was just so on point. If you're a true diehard, if you're a true PLL fan, diehard, you kind of knew it was coming, because I don't know if you guys follow Rabel and all of them on Instagram or whatnot, but, it was funny how Rob Pennell was in LA for 1 week, then a couple weeks later that announcement gets teased, and it's just it was the greatest kind of storyline for those couple weeks where he was in LA, and then before the announcement, it was so well thought out by the PLL. And then I think it was that Sunday night or whatever when they teased it, and then Jerry Ragonese photoshops himself into it just saying hi. That's got it.
Yeah. For me, it's really tough to say because the PLL is so unorthodox that we've seen so many things. Even seeing the fake team, the PLL Beans, show up for April Fool's Day. That's hysterical, and they make apparel for it, and tons of people buy the apparel. So seeing the way they've gone about it. Sorry?
Didn't it sell out on the first day or something? Or they did I remember seeing something on Sports Biz that they did $50,000 or something in that. And that was that's wild.
They made $50,000 off a fake team. That's unbelievable. That's unheard of. So seeing the things that they've done to kind of change the narrative a little bit has been a lot of fun. For me, I think seeing the expansion draft and seeing the collegiate draft has been awesome to see players come into the league, see the teams shaking up a little bit. Shaping up and shaking up a little bit has been awesome. That's been a lot of fun too. Like you said, Pennell coming into the league is awesome because he's got such a fan base. He's an all-world level player. Some people might argue that he's behind his prime. Some people will argue that he's in his prime. But however you look at it, to have a name like that joining up, that's awesome. So it's been a lot of fun this offseason. They've done a great job of keeping the news coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of touch on some of the stuff you guys talked about, Jordan, you mentioned first Rob Pennell. I was actually talking to one of the other guys in our fantasy lacrosse league that we're in, which we'll talk about more later on in this episode, Dax. And he was one of the guys that Dax mentioned too. He's really excited to finally see him in a PLL uniform. And I think a lot of us are as well. And then Phil, you mentioned the Beans Lacrosse Club for the April Fool's thing. That straight up, I'm not even gonna lie to you, that had me fooled from the first minute I saw it. I felt so dumb for falling for that, as hard as I feel like I did. But anyway, moving on. So the next thing that'll happen here is the final 22-man rosters will be announced on June 30th, and we kind of touched on some of these things off the air before we came on here. But the question here is, do you guys think that we'll see any sort of surprises with some of these 22-man rosters as they get finalized here in the next few weeks?
Okay, I need to make one statement first before we get here.
Go ahead.
Jacob Silver needs to be on a roster. He is too talented not to be. That. Plain and simple. Somebody, I know there's teams that already have 2 goalies, but somebody needs to pick him up. He's too talented not to. Don't want to disrespect anybody that's Stover needs to be on the roster.
I think as far as that goes in terms of a shakeup at this point in time, it wouldn't surprise me if we see someone get picked up in any event for any team. It's hard to believe we'd go through the whole waiver wire and not see a single pickup. However, from what I've heard and what I've seen, every team has needs. And that's true of any sport. Any sport, every team has a need, no matter how good they are. However, it seems that all of these coaches are very happy with who they currently have. They recognize maybe they need another specialist, meaning like a face-off. Maybe they do need a better backup goalie or need another goalie or, a little depth at attack or defense, wherever it is. However, it seems like every coach is very much set in, this is my team, these are my guys, and I am ready to rock. So we'll see if there's a shakeup, but from what I'm seeing, it almost seems like what we got is what we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And they even interviewed Andy Towers a few weeks ago after they traded Matt Gaudette from the Chaos to the Chrome. And then about a week or so later, Jeff Teat announced he's coming back to Cornell for his final year. And they kind of asked him about this offseason as a whole, but more specifically, I think, with that collegiate draft and the picks that he made there. And he pretty much flat out came out and said, we're comfortable with the guys that we have right now. We know that we can win with them. And we're kind of just building towards next year as well, because they do have those 2 additional picks now for that draft next year that's going to be ungodly loaded with talent.
Yeah. As far as next year's picks go, I think there's a few factors here. One, next year's picks are going to be like gold, because every single team, you could go like this, throw a dart, and you're going to land on a stud.
Yep.
And that's it. But you can also, with extra trades, use that as trade bait. We didn't see anything in the trade deadline there. That's already over. But at some point in time, whether that's in the off season next year, whatever it is, you can use those to leverage a trade. But I will say them adding Salcido in the off season, that trade, Miles Jones, Salcido, was awesome, because Salcido is lightning in a bottle. That man is as fast as it gets. Chaos loves that transition game. You see Newman coming all the way down. You see all these guys are just
bomb squad,
lightning, and they're ready to go. So Salcido having the speed he does is going to help. And conversely, the Redwoods getting Miles Jones is huge. The Redwoods right now, or previously, really only had a 2-point threat with Perkovic. I love Perkovic, big fan. He's so cool. He's such a nice guy. But that was really their 2-point threat. Adding Miles Jones into it creates another outside threat. And if they can build those outside threats from midfield, that only opens up the middle, and you open up the middle to Jules, Ryder, and Kavanaugh, that's trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So I think both sides got something they needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that whole Miles Jones thing, because especially in these group play games where you're going to have to, mismatch or whatever and kind of get creative. I'm sorry, I want to see Miles Jones body people and get back on defense and body people.
He's a big boy.
Exactly. And that's why, I don't know if you guys follow the NLL, but I sure hope he makes it an indoor, because, man, that's just going to be fun to watch, man.
Oh, yeah. And I actually, Miles Jones, with his speed and his body type, I actually heard that in the past he had gotten OTA offers from NFL teams.
Wow.
Not necessarily come out, you're going to be on the, you're going to make it, whatever, but offers to come out and at least try out and go through the team workouts, which it speaks to his athleticism, it speaks to his strength, all of it. So he's a dynamic player. I mean, he's fun to watch.
Absolutely.